So we are recording now. And first things first, I'm going to go into our class. Okay. Um, what's going on this week? Just kind of an update because we only meet on Monday and Thursday. So Thursday is kind of a follow up to Monday. What's going on, where we're at, what's happening, all that kind of stuff. First of all, what's already come due yesterday was some good news about global poverty. I don't know if anyone wants to share anything about that, if they found it interesting, or it's kind of nice to hear some good news for a change when we talk about all these problems and challenges out there. I got the chat out here if anybody wants to put anything in there about that, if you watch that. And I include a couple things in there because the story is actually connected. Bono, even though he wasn't the organizer, he was one of the young up and coming rock stars with his band U2 in the 80s when another guy named Bob Geldof decided to do a charity fundraiser for starving people in Africa where they had a big famine in Ethiopia that year. and they recorded a song called Do They Know It's Christmas? So there's young Bono in there. But Bono didn't give up then. He stuck with it for decades. He's not being a big international Irish rock star. He's doing a lot of charity work, and he goes himself to these places and does things. Well, he this TED Talk from 2013 was 29 years later after that, and then not only did he do a TED Talk about the efforts out there to deal with extreme poverty, but also the success happening. Like I said, it's nice to hear good news. So there's been a lot of success, a lot of and successes for a lot of reasons. It's not solely because a bunch of people decide to do charity and give out food. That helps. That helps get through a short run, but for the long run, in success for any part of the world is simply a lot of things coming together to make things better. A lot of people working hard. A lot of those countries were plagued by corruption that took a lot of their money, and a lot of them have moved toward democracy and more openness and transparency. So the money can go to investments, and then global trade helps a lot. Picking up business and trade and everything, and investments and information, the internet, all these things contribute. So it all helps quite a bit. Okay, so that's I think is pretty interesting. Hopefully you found, and then I threw in there the USA for Africa. That was a similar effort of about a month or two after the British effort. When I say British, that included a few non-British people like Bono, who's from Ireland, but um, but mostly it was British stars in that video, and then a bunch of U.S. stars, led by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, organized the USA for Africa. So that was "We Are the World" was a big hit that year. So hopefully that was kind of uplifting that there's good things going on. There are successes and improvements going on. Today is deviance and social control. That comes straight from what we're covering right now in chapter 7 and 8. So it's a nice little documentary I'd found I've been using for a couple of years that covers that topic to help you understand it better. So if you haven't done that yet already, do that. It'll help you understand what we're doing. Come, right from our current chapters. Video 7 and 8, part two. Again, directly right from our chapters on social stratification and deviance. So they're all crash courses, videos, but they do a great job. They're short, they're kind of fun. They're only 9 minutes, but they hit the stuff that if we had a formal sociology textbook, this would come straight out of the textbook. Okay. And by the way, all the notes that we do, those slides or the Mr. Rio, where you get this stuff from, it comes straight from sociology textbooks. I literally took a sociology textbook and made all those notes. And you might say, why don't we have a textbook? Well, that wasn't my decision. There's pros and cons of having a textbook. They're expensive to buy. But being we don't have one, rather than have you read a bunch of chapters and answer questions out of the book, I have you look at the notes that I already selected for you and make slides and multimedia out of it. So keep doing a good job on those slides. This here, you just watch these and write little summaries in that with them, answer some questions. And this is all stuff right out of the what we're doing right now. Then we are wrapping up 7 and 8. Okay. The test will be tomorrow. This is not where you submit it. I will post the link. I'll post it here and in the stream. So if you need to look for it, and if you can't take it tomorrow for some reason, contact me. Okay. I already had one student, their family was going out of town or something, and it's not a problem, but be in touch with me. Don't just blow it off. Okay. Because then I figure you don't want to take it. It's not hard. And this year, you guys get the extra advantage of you get to use your notes. So you can go to your notes and your slides. It'll be a link to a Google form, and we'll be done. Now, all we got left is one more coming up. That's a combined chapter. We'll start the notes a little bit next week. Matter of fact, that's going to be, we're not going to, next week we'll do that and probably a few kind of more fun things relating to sociology. Then when we come back, there's not much time at all. We'll wrap up. I don't think they're going to require me to do a final exam, but if they are, we'll just use our next test as our final exam. So there won't be, I'm not planning a comprehensive final. So, and if they don't, then we'll have our last test. So one way or the other, we're going to have one more test in January, and it's going to go real fast. If you're all caught up in that, great. You're cruising, wrap this week up, and then next couple of weeks won't be bad at all. If you're behind for any reason, you should be plugging away. If you're just behind a couple of assignments, not the end of the world. But if you're behind more than that, you should be trying to knock out at least one a day to catch up. And if you can't do it this week, you definitely can do it over break. Okay. So yeah, we're already in week um, 14. I was going to go back very briefly now. By the way, if anyone got a question or comment, just either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and just ask. Real informal here. Um, let's see. We're going to go to back to our original slides. I'm just going to talk just briefly about this, just a few minutes. I've talked about this before. The first one was on social control and deviance, which I've talked about quite a bit. I was going to pick up with the Indian caste system, which is in stratification. So jumping up ahead here to chapter 8, part of it, social stratification. And there's all kinds of stratification out there. There's ones for, say, our whole country. There's ones for Harper Creek High School. There's ones for if you're part of a club or team or organization or religious group. It can be done by economics. It can be done by popularity. It can be done by power. It can be done by, a variety of things. And these kind of things that we talk about like this exists to some extent or another all over the world. So take a country like India, okay? To the average American who probably doesn't know a lot about India, they probably look over there and figure, well, there's, over a billion or so Indians. End of story. First of all, there are like 400 languages in India, okay? And for those who don't know, the main languages are Hindi and English. You might say, why English? Well, they were part of the British Empire. And because there are so many languages and cultures within India, um, a lot of people, use English as a common language. So their main language may be something else, but if they need to talk to each other, they all don't know each other's languages other than English in many cases. And the main religion over there is called Hinduism. So a big reason of the caste system is connected to their religion. Okay. And under the caste system, people are born into a caste. Okay. It's a closed stratified system. Resources and social rewards are distributed based on an ascribed status. Ascribed means you didn't do anything to get it other than be born into it. Okay. Then you have that status for your entire life determined by your parents. So if you're at the top, the Brahmins, you're at the top. And if you're at the bottom, the untouchables, you're an untouchable your whole life. So that is may seem, pretty bizarre to us because the thought of being born and being stuck at that level your whole life through no fault of your own is rather strange. But I'll get more to that in just a moment. They prohibit exogamy, which is marriage outside of their caste, and they promote endogamy, which is marriage within your caste. Okay. The caste system in India has been challenged. In other words, not everyone agrees with it. And especially in the last 50 years or so, they've been trying to make changes and try to do things to help people in the lower caste to be able to move up. So there, it isn't like everybody. I'm not saying 100% of the people agree with this or follow it or believe in it, but it's probably gotten weaker over the years. You know, it's probably one of those things that back in history was big thing. Now, even though in no way whatsoever do I mean to say this is good or right, nor am I judging it that much because it's not my culture. So I'm more interested to know why they did it and what they did. And I've seen a few documentaries about this, and not to say it's perfect or anything, it certainly is not. But one thing that has worked well in India is different castes have different roles and jobs in society, and includes everything from farming to burying the dead to, you know, whatever it may be, you know, the professional classes and so forth. So, right or wrong, it has worked to help keep a lot of things stable in India for a long, long time. But having said that, people are moving away from it. Now, we have what's called a class system, which is different. And I'm not going to go into all the debates and everything. It's we got stuff in our notes and stuff you see in the videos. But generally speaking, people are, sometimes we say three classes. You know, there's poor, middle class, and rich. In the US, we like to think of most people as middle class. So you can have people that are probably on the high end of poor or definitely the low end of middle class, which is often referred to as working class. And they consider themselves middle class. And you got some people that are really quite rich. You know, maybe there's a doctors and business owners and people like that. They may make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and still view themselves as middle class. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying that's how it is. So in that sense, we have a huge amount of people in the U.S. that considers themselves middle class. The reality is more complex than that. We do have about 20% that generally are the rich. And some of them are the local business people and doctors and lawyers and that we see in the community that, you know, probably make, you know, 150, 200,000 a year or more. And they definitely would fall into the top 20% in that price range. Even probably 100,000 would. Um, and then, of course, it goes up to the 1%, and then the 1% of the 1% who are unbelievably crazy rich. You're talking about your billionaires and all those kind of people. And then we got the bottom 20%, and those are people that clearly are living in poverty. And poverty in the U.S., you know, is some people say, well, you know, poor people in the U.S., they still got a roof over their head in most cases, and they got indoor plumbing, and they got clean water, and they can go get health care if they need it and stuff like that. That's true. You know, compared to a lot of places in the world, it is better. But that doesn't mean a whole lot if you're in that group and you're in the United States and you're struggling and you know, are dealing with a lot of the effects of that. So, so we do got that. And then, of course, we got various levels in between, and there's been a lot of debates over this and how to deal with it and how to help people. We like to think we're mobile. If you work hard and motivate yourself, you can work your way up to a, a higher level, which in you can. You know, many people have done that through various ways. Some people go down, obviously. And the one thing that is a little bit sad, I don't know if it's in here anywhere, but it's been in the media news a lot and research and stuff. And that is the US used to be one of the most likely countries in the world where someone of modest means could work hard and move themselves up. Now we're ranked something I've seen like 38th or 40th, which means a whole lot of countries are doing better than we are as far as you know, opportunities to move up. And a lot of it has to do with things like virtually every other advanced country has um, either free or very cheap college education, so that isn't a barrier to people that are smart. Most of them got very affordable universal health care, right or wrong. I'm not saying, you know, whether we should do that, but they don't have to worry as much about healthcare, and that can help them in many ways. And a lot of times they just have more opportunities because the U.S. has, in some ways, you know, stratified even more so, where those at the top. got more and more and more, and getting harder and harder for everyone else to even keep what they have. So there's a lot of challenges. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Some of it's policy changes. Some of it is technology. Technology has knocked a lot of good jobs out, so that's hurt things. So it's also create jobs for people that can do that. Okay, and then just kind of wrap up here. They talk about wealth and power. Usually those go together. And prestige. Prestige isn't always about wealth and power. There are people that get a lot of prestige that may not be real wealthy or have a lot of power. Um, Power is just simply how much you can control others. And wealth, of course, is how much you actually own. And it says here 1% of the US population owns one third of the wealth. And you don't have to go much beyond the 1%, maybe 2%, 3%, 4%, and they own more than the bottom half of the United States. So, you know, it's a big stratification there as far as wealth goes. There are various theories about this. The functionalists look at the functions, the different ones. We obviously can't have everybody rich and or we certainly don't want everybody poor. We need people to do jobs throughout the society. Conflict theory, people like Marx that look at the conflict between those with the power and the money and those without. Effort at synthesis, trying to blend different approaches, kind of a combination of these two. And then the American class system and poverty. Last two things we'll wrap up this for today. Sociologists use three techniques to determine social class, something called reputational method, subjective method, objective method. Most sociologists use a system that identifies six social classes in the United States: the upper class, the upper middle class, the lower middle class, the working poor, and the underclass. So the poorest would be the underclass. Because the United States has an open system, social mobility, movement between classes is possible, unlike the caste system. Sociologists are more interested in structural causes of social mobility than in the individual causes. Now, this might be a little bit outdated one way or the other. The numbers could be slightly higher or lower. And sometimes people use in different studies, use different metrics as to where they draw the line and who's in poverty or not. But here it says roughly 37 million Americans, which would be maybe 11% or so, live in poverty, which is below what a society considers minimum adequate living standards. And they look at characteristics such as age. You're more likely to have elderly, people that, either because they don't have much retirement available or they got health issues or both. Sex, you're more likely to have women in poverty than men. And a lot of that could be connected to things like single mothers and so forth, or women being in jobs that don't pay as well. Race, um, um, Black and Hispanic more likely to have higher poverty rates than whites. Asian Americans tend to have lower poverty rates than whites. But the reason for that most likely is the fact the immigration pattern for Asian Americans to the U.S., which has been more the last 50 years, has been very tilted toward professionals. Okay. So it's just that the people happen to come here from Asian countries. A lot of them came here for college first. So they're more likely to be doctors and engineers and scientists and things like that. So that would be a big reason for that particular case. Of course, minority groups have had prejudice and discrimination that played a role in bigger poverty rates. Poor and wealthy members of society have different life changes and behavior patterns, and talks about government welfare programs attempt to reduce inequality. So programs, government programs, and that do play a role in helping, minimize some of these differences. So that's pretty much it. You can put on your final slide there if you haven't done so already. Your what you think could improve it. I'll be checking those. And then tomorrow I'll post the either late tonight or tomorrow early before 9. I'll post the test for 7 and 8. You can take it sometime tomorrow and be done with it. And if something comes up and you can't take it tomorrow, make sure you contact me. Any questions? I'm going to undo this here. we don't get to meet in person. I miss the in person classes for sociology because we can often have some pretty good discussions when we when I have a sociology class that meets in person. Is everybody ready for a Christmas break? You can put it in the chat if you want. Yes, no. You guys still here? You guys like my scenic beach and ocean and everything here? So, okay, that's it for today. If you got a question, just unmute yourself and ask or put it in the chat. Otherwise, you guys have a great day. We'll be back Monday for a Zoom session and then just wrap up the test tomorrow and any other assignments. So, good luck. Take care.
Bye, Rio.